This is Stronger Than My Father with Marcus Menace.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Menace. Stronger Than My Father podcast is your most trusted podcast that's centered around restoring fatherhood in America. Hey, you guys, I cannot do this work by myself, so I'll have to thank my podcast producer, Mr. Jim McCarthy, who does all the work, behind the scene work to make this podcast work. And if you're needing voiceover work or if you need a podcast producer, I encourage you to reach out to my friend, Jim McCarthy at jmvos.com. Also, a special shout out to my oldest son, MJ, who is podcast production assistant, host. He does everything he needs to help his dad get ready for these podcasts, so I have to thank him as well. And this is probably one of the first podcasts I've done with a co-host, who I thank you for coming and spending some time with me, Miss Renee Jones, who is Stronger Than My Father, Director of Programs and Events here in the Nashville area. So thank you for coming on and putting up with me for another podcast episode. And Jim did give you the applause. Yeah, put the headphones on.
Thank you, Jim.
So let's get to work. This is number 3 of my podcast episode, Honoring Single Moms. Mother's Day is coming up, and I felt led to honor single moms, listen to their stories, get the advice. So this single mom, and I hope I'm not offended by saying single mom, but I would say this woman who has raised a daughter and who's doing great work in the community. I met almost a year ago, who came to our fundraising event. Good friends whom I can call. We just have a good conversation. So I say, look, come on the show. Let's talk about being a single mother. So I would like to welcome my guest, Miss Stacey Cole. Welcome for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, pull up on the mic a little bit so I can hear your voice. Or just take it off like Miss Clemmy did. Just take it off and hold it.
I don't want to hold it though.
Okay. All right, cool.
Okay, let me come
and
up
just relax.
Okay, let me relax
and enjoy this ride.
Okay.
There we have to go on. With Mother's Day is approaching, what are some things coming to your mind of raising a daughter, and how do you feel when Mother's Day comes up? Do you feel like it's just a joyful day for you spending time with your mom, or just what do you feel when you hear the word Mother's Day?
Oh, Mother's Day to me is every day.
Okay.
So I love spending time with my mother, but she lives in Indiana.
Okay.
And my daughter lives in Brooklyn, New York.
Wow.
So we talk regularly all the time. So it could be 2 or 3 times a day. So celebration, that's a time for shout outs. Yeah. But she shouts me out all through the year. Yeah. And we are very close, very close.
Well, that's cool. So growing up, tell my audience some of the challenges that you may have faced. I'm glad. Thank you for telling me your daughter's 29.
She is 29.
I kept saying 19. What were some of those challenges that you had growing up, raising your daughter?
Okay, so I had her at 20 years old. Okay, and I was in college. Okay, at SIU in Carbondale. Okay, all right. I didn't leave school. I stayed in school. I went into family housing. And had her. I was with her father at the time, and we met in high school. He went to a Catholic high school. I went to what they would call a magnet school today. And we had been together since maybe we were 15 or 16 years old, and we went off to college together. And there I got pregnant, and I am a first generation college student. All right. So to call and say you pregnant, as of today, I've never told anybody that I'm pregnant.
You didn't tell nobody you were pregnant?
I mean that by saying, yes, I have a 29-year-old, but hey, you're the first generation college student. You're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to do. And you didn't took your tail down there, and you didn't have a baby. Who told you to do that? Right. So I stayed in college, and I graduated on time in my 4 years. I actually went to the week after me having her. In May, I was in my finals.
Wow.
And they were like, you going to finals? I said, yes, I'm getting up out of here. I still have some work to do. And I had her. So the challenge is I was 20. So I wasn't that young, but I was old enough to know better. But I was still young enough to not know anything, being a single mom.
Let me ask you this question, and can you share some tips of balancing parenting responsibilities with your personal goals and self-care?
That was hard.
Come on now. I know you got something.
Look, I do, but I have to tell you, they have all these books. If you go to the pregnancy area of any bookstore, there are a number of books on how to raise kids, but all of them are lies.
These books ain't telling you the truth.
They ain't telling you the truth because each child has their own personality. Absolutely. You have to feed into each child differently. And so there, in the very beginning, I knew very much so I wanted to raise my daughter differently. I grew up in a single parent household, and my mom was strict. She did not play. But what love looked like was, okay, I'm going to keep the lights on, the gas on. I'm going to give you some food on the table. That's what love looked like. And I don't know what your love language is. My love language is touching. I love hugs and cuddling, kisses on the cheek and things like that. So that's what I wanted
today.
Yeah, this is trending because this has happened 2 episodes in a row.
Is that right?
It's not happening on the third one. It's not happening on the third one.
Now, what is the trend that's happening?
The trend is, I'll tell you the trend. We're going to get back to you. Because y'all ain't going to come over here and dog me out today. What you just said. Providing. I was cool with putting food on the table. You got everything you need.
Yes.
That's my love language to you. I'm a provider. I'm a provider for you. And you got everything you need.
Yeah.
You ain't got to come home to a lot of problems. So aren't you should be happy and thankful?
Yeah.
And you should just know that I love you because I do that. And from you guys saying that's totally wrong and you supposed to told me and touch me and hold me. And I'm like, look, you got food on the table. We're gonna go out to eat.
Yeah.
We need something. Let's go to Costco's. Come back. I'm gonna watch a little TV. You gonna watch a little TV. Go to bed. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And
that's your love language.
That's my love language.
Yeah, you're a provider.
So I'm a provider.
But what is the other person's love language?
Yeah, hers is the affection. You don't hold me. You don't touch me. But see, all right. So anyway. I'm gonna say this last thing, and we're gonna get back to you.
Okay.
Because y'all are not gonna tag team me. I'm not. I'm gonna go to battle this one.
Yeah.
But I do know it's important.
Yeah,
it is.
I just got to find a way to get there.
Yeah.
My mind is that when you're trained by a father to say your job is to provide, that's where we were trained.
Yes.
And my mind is only there.
Yeah.
If it's time for intimacy, I think about it. Outside of that, I am thinking about providing for you. So, because my mind's not always, some guys is mind is always there.
Yeah,
they see somebody with a nice pair of jeans, big butt, or something like. My mind's like, all right, how I'm gonna provide? How I'm gonna go do? Like my mind goes like that all the time. When I get to the podcast, hey, Tori, what you gonna eat for lunch? You good? You need this? You need that's the first question. I don't hardly ever ask, how was your day at work? How are you doing?
We don't have to practice that.
And I don't. Hey, you make it home? You good? You need this? You need that's kind of how I pray. 8 o'clock in the morning. What you want to eat for dinner tonight? I'm gonna go get it from the store. I'm gonna go do this and that. Whatever you need for the evening. That's who I am.
Yeah.
So when people tell me you got to come home and just hug you have. I guess growing up in a home, just like other people have things they grew up in a home, I didn't see that growing up.
Yeah.
So why was it important to you to raise your daughter?
Yes.
She's going to get me.
We'll get back to you. That's another podcast.
All right.
Why was it important to you? I think we're all from the same generation, and I think our stories from our upbringing may be similar in that, I was raised with both my parents. Dad went to, both of my parents worked.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the hugs and the affection and the kissing and all of that, it seems like it is a common story for those of us who grew up around the same time. So why was it important to you to be intentional about doing things differently with your daughter?
Yeah. So it intentionally, because it was important for me to have a balance, right? So growing up in a single parent household, my mother had to make some sacrifices. It was 3 of us. I'm the eldest. And so the sacrifices that were made, but I wanted to make a promise to myself, and I did to my siblings and said, hey, I want there to be a balance. And if there is any time that I am not doing the right thing, I want you to check me. And so even as I was carrying her the 9 months. And I think what happened, and I don't know for you, something spiritual came over me. It was my first daughter. I was in college, and my connection to a higher power, God, was dropped into me. Like, wait a minute, I'm about to birth a human. And so I want to pour into her. You know, I want to pour into her and give her a life that looks and feels different. And because I'm so affectionate, it was important for her to know that I loved her. I needed her to hear that, not only see that, but also giving her some of the foundational things that my mother provided me. Like you just said, hey, the foundation is, hey, I am going to provide a roof over your head, but there's some responsibilities and accountability for you as my child to help support me in this. But I'm not going to lean on you. I'm not going to give you too much responsibility. But hey, you need to go ahead, clean your room. You need to go ahead and wash those dishes. You need to do that homework. You need to do those things.
So did it have anything to do with, so as an adult looking back in retrospect, do you feel like you missed, I know you have a good relationship with your mom, but do you feel like you missed or you were impacted in any way by not getting that affection? How did that impact you as an adult?
First, I have to say that healing happens every day.
Absolutely. Okay.
So one of the most profound things my daughter told me, she was about 16 years old at the time. And we grew up in households that were there. Love looked like providing.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm college degree, master's degree, working in corporate America. And I just so happened to we were driving down the expressway in Chicago, and she was expressing some emotions. And she said, "We don't cry." And it hit me like a ton of bricks. So this is to answer your question. I hadn't realized that it had impacted me in adulthood until she showed me and told me that we don't cry. Crying is a sign of weakness.
Wow.
Now, being raised by a massive tribe of strong Black women, it had never dawned on me that, wait a minute, I haven't shown her how to balance her emotions. And the impact of her saying that brought me to tears. I was crying, and I said, oh my gosh, I forgot to show you the emotional side. That emotion is an important part of you as a young woman. It is important that you have a balance. Yes, we're going to go and get it, but you have to be able to express that stuff, because that stuff on the inside bottled up will tear you down, will tear you up on the inside, right? So from that day, I started to even lean more into and reprogramming myself now. Reprogramming myself not to suppress things, to have open conversations about different topics. It was important because she showed me, even in that statement, wait a minute, you're not as well balanced as you thought you were.
And so how do you feel now, knowing what you know, having gone through some healing, having seen what you've seen, how do you feel about that term, strong Black woman?
Ooh.
You explain that.
Because we used it used to make us feel like, okay. But knowing what we know now, knowing what you know now, how do you feel about being called a strong Black woman?
You know, I'm still okay with it.
Okay.
I'm still okay with it, but there's some terms and conditions that come with it. Okay. Because the truth of the matter is, I believe that through our genealogy, we can carry some weight, but I think what has been missing of carrying that weight is balance. So in carrying that weight of the responsibilities of doing things, that there also needs to be a softness, and that's allowed for us, right? It has to be, and a lot of times we have to be given permission, because let's go back to the provider role. I'm the provider, so I cannot show emotion. I can't show that because it's a sign of weakness, and I have to take care of you, and you over there, and the community, and all of those people. But wait a minute, what about the time when I need to cry? Who gives me space?
That's it.
And can hold space for me to have those feelings of emotions. And when I show those emotions, you hold me in it, and don't try to fix it.
That's right.
Because I don't need you to fix it.
That's my problem.
Okay, I don't
I'm
know.
a fixer.
I don't need you to fix it, because sometimes I just need to have a moment to break,
to feel what you feel,
to feel what I feel, right?
And to sit down in them feelings.
And sit down with those feelings, because it's important, not only as Black women, but as African American people, to be okay with feelings.
That's right.
Okay, and understanding what those feelings are. Am I actually mad, or am I disappointed? Am I actually sad, or I'm feeling shame? What actually am I feeling? Because in my life, there was a feeling of anger, happy, and get stuff done. Okay, those were the feelings, and that last was not even a feeling.
Right.
Right.
So what's the problem with someone trying to just fix something? When if you came home, we were married, you come home and you had all these emotions, I'm gonna look at you and say, well, how can we fix it? I don't understand. The problem I struggle with, this is a struggle, is when you start it's just a talk and nobody because the problem that I think, I'm not saying it's a problem, is that when people talk, I always relate to what I saw at home. And I didn't have the mother that did all of that. My mom would come in, hey, get your home. She was just that person who never came out that way, but help me understand. So if, like Renee said, is Toya, I don't like saying wife all the time. You got a name. Just
That's
Toya.
right. She does.
Just Toya. Because she'll come home and she'll be like, this, and I'm like, hold up. Like this, what do you mean do we fix the problem? First thing I say, what do you mean do we fix the problem? I don't feel like hearing all that. Like the thing confuses my head. So even with doing after school and mentorship, even though I had a heart to help, the problem I always wanted to quit, because when these moms would come in and pick at kids, it was just this. It was just like, and I was just like, I can't take all that. Because I wasn't trained how to handle all of it. So help me in that area.
Can I share a little bit about that? Because it's not just you, it's multiple people. I'm going to say that what we're talking about is generational differences.
Okay.
Right?
Absolutely.
So yes, you can lean into, hey, I didn't see that. However, now you are a husband, you are a spouse. So now it's important for you to lean in and adapt to the circumstances that you are in, right? And when I mentioned before, I mentioned a little bit about holding space, right? And so holding space is exactly that. It doesn't mean I need you to fix it. It doesn't mean that I need you to resolve the problem. It just means, like a bucket of water, I want you to hold space for me. I want you to sit there. I want you to listen, like you're listening to me right now, and you're saying, and you're listening. And I don't care what's on the inside of you or trying to fix it. I just want you to hold space for me and listen and be attentive and say, babe, it's going to be okay. I got you regardless. And that's it. That's what holding space looks like. Okay. That's what it looks like. Now, generationally, I can see my grandmother and grandfather, they were married until they both passed away, right? And I have aunts and uncles at 60, 70 years. They've been married for a long time. That was the household that you're talking about?
Yeah.
It's exactly what we're talking about. We had a family meeting not only a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about holding space and being vulnerable. And then the aunties is in their 80s and everything. She called, she don't want to be vulnerable. She's like, what is that? Okay, Stacey, how you doing? Hey, and I'm, the first thing in my brain is, I'm like, is everything okay? Because I'm not accustomed to the vulnerability of opening up and sharing that.
Yeah, I guess we didn't see that growing up at home. I just seen my dad. Now, the crime, I didn't see my dad cry until I saw him when he lost. The first time I saw my dad cry is when he lost his mother. Yeah. And I had never seen my dad cry. He was just like this tough exterior person. And for me, I was like, as a child, as a boy growing up, you're looking up to him like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. And so I struggle with that vulnerability side. I struggle with, you come in, I had a hard day at work. I'm like, God, dog, I don't want to hear that when I come home. But I don't just come out bluntly and say that. I don't. I don't do that. That's cruel. Yes. But in my mind, I just say, I say, all right, you know, if you don't like this department no more, just go to another department.
Yeah.
That fixed the problem. That's what I usually say.
Yeah.
When I hear that.
Yeah.
So that's an area in my life that I still, at 47, I'm still trying to navigate through. Yeah. Because I am a problem. I try to fix problems, and if I here's what you're gonna say that you like, wow, this guy's off his rockers. Is that if I sense a problem coming, and I can sense it's coming, I'm already trying to figure out how to get away from it.
Yeah. But I have a question for you.
Go ahead. Go and give me a question.
How can you adequately fix a problem that you have not taken the time in its fullness to hear and understand?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because I know as men, you're not the only man. A lot of times you're not the only man that struggles with this.
Thank you.
Sometimes as soon as somebody starts, it's like, okay, well, just tell me how to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
First of all, as women, everything don't need fixing.
Right.
Sometimes it just needs to be expressed.
That's right.
Released and heard. And once we get it up and out, then we can breathe. We can figure out what we need to do.
Yeah.
We may not necessarily want anything to actually change or be different. It may just be a level of frustration or area of frustration. But I want to know as a because I'm a fixer too.
Yeah.
I'm a problem solver. I get things done.
Absolutely.
But I cannot fix anything that I have not taken the time in its fullness to actually understand what is, because you got to get to the root of a thing if you're going to fix it for real.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think for me is that I don't feel like dealing with it. That's my problem. I just don't feel like dealing with it.
That's a different issue, Ben.
But you being honest. So you just don't want to hear it. You don't want to deal with it.
No,
so you're really not concerned with what is going on with the other individual.
Yeah.
Nah, look,
you gotta care.
I care
about it. It's a problem.
If you come to me with a problem, if you tell me
you don't want to hear it,
okay. We supposed to be talking about you, Stacey.
That's all right, because we're gonna coach you through this.
Jim,
we brought two fixers up in here. We're gonna help you.
Another therapy session.
We're gonna coach you through this thing.
All right, I will say this,
but it's helping somebody, I'm sure.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
I think the thing for me is that when you grow up in a house and you didn't hear a lot of problems, we just didn't. Like, I can't name 2 or 3 arguments my parents had that you were like, wow, are they going at each other? I never heard it. So when I get out into the world and I start seeing things that was not normal to me, that's how I react.
Yeah.
So from the work we're doing, and why do Renee get tired of me all the time saying I'm ready to quit? I'm ready to quit is because it's a world that I wasn't prepared for. I wasn't prepared for this kind of a world.
Yeah.
I just thought, just like with my cousin, and my mom asked me to mentor me at 27. I was like, where's his daddy? That's the first question I told him. Because that to me, you telling me there's a problem. He don't have a dad. He needs you to mentor him.
Yeah.
My response is, where's his daddy?
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to be there, not Marcus. And my mom looks at me and says, Mark, he don't have no father. And I said, Mom, are kids growing up without daddies now? And I'm 27. And my mom says, I didn't have no daddy. And she didn't really talk to us about her childhood.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you were getting at earlier, is having that balance because of what we did see. So it is important to take some foundational principles and lessons learned from our parents. But we have to understand why our parents were even like that.
Exactly.
Because they had life was just different.
It was different.
They had time to be crying and stuff like that. They had to figure out how they was going to navigate life.
Yeah.
And so now that we have evolved and we know better and situations have kind of changed, there's a place for strength and being strong.
Yeah.
But there is also a place for balance. And I think that it is important to show our children and to show those around us both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a false narrative. It's false.
That's true.
It's false to only present this. What are we teaching our kids when we only present them with the strong side?
And you have to think that, and you mentioned our parents, and if we're all in the generation, they grew up in the civil rights movement.
It was different.
It was different. Like Black Panther. I mean, it was different.
Yeah.
And so once we got to a certain age, they had put things in place. They weren't fighting so much more, right?
Yeah.
And so once they put things in place, they still had the rigidity of that. So it was like, this stays in the room. You won't see it.
Yeah.
But if my grandmother told me, I was asking her about her past and all that kind of stuff. And of course, she was in her 80s and everything. She was like, that is in the past. I'm not having conversations about that. Right? And it was painful. It was painful. Like, my mother and father, civil rights, they were this close to slavery, right? Yeah. And so I don't want to have that conversation, Stacey, but thank you for asking. And so when you think about how close in proximity that is to us, we didn't see a lot. We had very firm parents. And what we've decided to do, once you have knowledge, though, Marcus, it is important for us to open up and learn new behaviors, because otherwise we pass those generational wounds, so to speak, to our next generation. And so you want to share, it's all share compassion. You want to show compassion. You want to teach compassion, because your boy is going to be a husband to a wife, and you want him to know how to offer that compassion to his wife, right? Yeah. And it's very important that I want to go back to my daughter at that 16. So once I had the knowledge, right, it was knowledge that, wait a minute, you're just showing this strong woman and you're not showing her how to express emotions. Now I have the knowledge. Now I have to go and do some research and say, how do I break down my shell, this hard outer shell, so that way I can show my daughter how to express herself accordingly, personally and professionally, where she can begin to navigate this world, because I'm equipping her for the next, her being a wife and a spouse to a man.
Yeah, I ain't even thought about equipping MJ for marriage yet. I ain't really thought about that.
See, we here to help you.
I'm
absolutely.
My problem with my son, the thing with my son, and I've been, I ain't saying ridicule, I've been fussed on this podcast on multiple episodes about raising my son.
You're bringing these women on here, huh?
Yeah, I ain't doing Jim, this is the last year I do Mother's Day episodes. Forget this. Crap ain't working for me. Is that the thing that I'm, and one guest told me, she said that you cannot allow the hurt that you had in your past to protect your son.
It's true.
That's right.
And so every day you see MJ with me, I'm like, I am overprotective. I will admit that. He's 15. I'm overprotective. And I think when he turned 15, I just broke down crying. Because I said I only have 3 years to get him ready for the world. And I know this world is cruel.
Yes.
And y'all both raise kids. And who protects my son once he goes away? And I'm going to protect. And that's the question I was going to ask you. Yeah. Was like, how much were you overprotective of your daughter? Or did you let her have some free space? Or were you just at mom, like, you better not go over there, you better not do this, you better not do that? So let me ask you that. But I'm just telling you, I am overprotective of my son.
Yeah.
So, so you get in the car, did anybody bully you? Anybody bother you?
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah.
Like, first thing, did anybody bother you I need to go talk to out here? Like, first thing I ask him every day. I don't ask my baby that, my baby Jordan.
Yeah.
I don't ask him none of that, because he come in the car fussing. So, but MJ, because of his condition, I just feel like I had to be protective over him. And even with church, you know, he wants to go serve, he want to go help. And I'm thinking like, man, all the stuff I've been through, I ain't letting my son do this and that.
Yeah.
And you know who fussed at me the most was my mama. She said, you better let that boy do what he need to do. If he want to serve God, you better let him go.
Yes.
And because you don't want God to get, mama used to put God and fear in everything with me. She said, this word with God, I'd be scared. But for you, were you that overprotective mom, or you just kind of that real cool mom with your daughter?
Neither. She was very curious at a very young age. So I was a single mom. I didn't intend to be. She and her dad and I, we had conversations about not being replications of our parents, right? And we got to college. He went his way. I went my way. Got out. And because she was so curious, I realized at a very early age, I did not want anyone feeding into her brain outside of me. And she needed to hear whatever she needed to hear from me first. And I remember a conversation. I picked her up. She had to be in kindergarten. And I picked her up from school. And she said, and she went to a private Christian school. And the first conversation sounded a little bit like, Mom, all the daddies come up to the school. I can get you a daddy. Get me a daddy. And I said, what? And so she used to sit kitty corner right behind me. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, well, that's not how daddies get found.
I ain't never heard that one before.
You can't find them that way. That's a different for me. She was interested in how come I wasn't married. Okay. And she was curious. And so I said, okay. And some months passed and she said, hey, can we pick out some wedding dresses?
Wow.
Okay. No, this is a conversation. And then the conversation, and this is a 7-8 year old conversation, conversation. I'll fast speed it up a little bit. And then she said to me, well, Mom, today they said that children outside of marriage is a sin. Did you and my daddy sin? Oh, Lord, have mercy.
Wow.
And so that was our conversations. We had conversations in the car. And I'm thinking to myself, why did they have that conversation with them? And who are you, little child, to be asking me that question? So I had two things to decide. If I was going to lie, okay, or if I was going to tell the truth. Okay. And I thought, and I said, I said, sometimes parents make mistakes. And yes, in the Bible, that is a sin. And she's in a Christian school. So yes, we did sin. And we had you out of wedlock. I was not married. And that satisfied her taste. And she was quiet. And then later on, she was back to me getting married again. Okay, so that I answered that question and she moved on. But I say that to say I was open, but I wanted to educate her. So as she got older, 10 years old, she was a quirky kid. She had the pink tips on her hair before it was a thing. She liked to skateboard. That was different for a little girl. She wasn't a Barbie girl. That's not who she was. Right. She actually didn't like them at all. She wanted to do cartwheels, ride bicycles. But I left the door open for her to make some mistakes and have conversations. So I'm going to give you another example. Of having conversations with your children, having real and true conversations with them. Because the truth of the matter is the world, like you said, is cruel. And so if you don't have conversations with them, somebody else is going to have a conversation with them. Okay. And I didn't want that. So she came home one day and she said, they were laughing at me. And I said, well, what were you guys talking about? And this is a throwback. You remember those songs by the Yin Yang Twins, right? And it was some derogatory stuff. We can't sing about it, but it was some good songs. So we talking about third graders, the access that they had. But for her, she said to me, she was like, yeah, they were laughing, talking about you all silly. You don't know what those songs mean. She was like, absolutely, I know what those songs mean. You guys do not know what those songs mean. And you should not be singing them. So this is our conversation in the car. And so I said, how do you feel about the conversations that they're having about women? Okay. Now we're talking about a third grader. She was like, I think those are inappropriate. I said, would you like to sing those songs? I said, well, so then she says, well, for entertainment, I think I really like the music. Right. And so my rule and philosophy on that is that if you don't understand the context of the song, you can't listen to the song. You should not be you shouldn't, if you don't understand it, you shouldn't. So that's how our conversations were. And today she actually works in music. She works in music. But so I was neither. She had a car at 16. She went to parties. I talked to her seriously about guilt by association. Okay. So in my household as a child, certain people stood on corners. Okay. So you don't stand on no corners, but you can stand in the middle of the street. You can hang out with your friends, right? So things like that. Guilt by association. Hey, if you're hanging out with some friends and they decided to steal in the mall, know that if they get in trouble, you're going to get in trouble too. Right? And so really educating her allowed me to give her freedom. And then when it was time to have disciplinary conversations, we talked about it and talked about the ramifications and what those things looked like and could look like, not only in her present, but also how it would impact her future.
Yeah. Let me ask this question, and as we wrap this up, we didn't get into your business. So
I'm telling you.
So we got to talk about your business at least 5 minutes before we leave. Before we end this, how were you, this is what I need help with. I will get some advice. How are you able to let your daughter go? Like when you get 18 and she gotta go, she's not under your nest no more. Renee, you could jump in as well.
Let them go.
How do you like? I'm preparing my mind. So when MJ walks across the stage at 18, he says, "Dad, I'm going to college." He's not in the house no more, and I wake up and I don't see him in this room. How do I handle that? Because, or am I going? Now
you're gonna be crying.
I'm be sitting in this room like I need my boy.
Yeah, that's what you're going to be doing. But here's the thing that's going to give you solace.
Okay.
Parenting does not stop.
I was going to say, what is letting go?
What does that look like?
Well, I think just when I say let go, it's like I asked my dad the same thing, but I ain't gonna say he didn't let us go. We just moved next door to mom and dad.
Oh, so y'all didn't go nowhere.
So when I moved out my house, my parents' house at 23, and we didn't move. We just moved next door, and then we were still hanging at mom and dad's house. And when I got married, my house was around the corner from mom and dad. Yeah. So why was I hanging out after work? Either my brothers or my mom and dad. Told you to come home and be like, "Where you at?" I'm like, "I'm eating dinner with mom and daddy." And it was like, that was a problem.
Please don't buy MJ a house next door.
Yeah, I probably will.
Probably.
I am trying my best to wrap around my mind that MJ is going to be leaving to go off to college or something one day. I'm giving him a little more freedom now.
Yes.
You know, we got a cell phone. He's texting some girl, "I love you." And I'm just like, why you, first thing my defense go up.
Yes. And that's an opportunity for you to educate and find out. Right. That's an opportunity. So you can really learn through your son, learn through your children how to respond to your wife, to Toya. Because let me explain a little bit more, right? So he's at a stage where he's identified a little crush, right? And his heart is saying that he's in love. So this is an opportunity for you to have a conversation with him about what love looks and feels like.
Oh, I need to get a book.
No, there's no book.
No, you need to tap in.
You got to tap in.
I'll let y'all talk to him. I'll let y'all two talk to him.
You got to tap in.
Because my problem is that, and Renee probably said, I ain't never going to go to therapy. I don't think nobody going to talk to me about that. I think I'm going to say, son, look, just don't get too close. That's what I'm probably going to tell him.
Oh, no.
That's not
not it.
So when you get, so when he's going to get his heart broken. And I'm going to just say, I just want you to be okay. I don't want you to flip out or do something crazy. So just know that, young crushes like this, you probably not going to be together forever. It's a small little thing, but just protect your heart. And my dad didn't tell me that. I'm crying and crap, and, first, I'm crying and everything. And then daddy just goes off. He was like, toughen up. Toughen up.
That's the generation.
Yeah. So when he told me toughen up, I changed it to the person I am now.
Yeah.
And it's probably not the best. But so that's why that affection side and all this stuff I don't think about all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's just that toughen up part of me that he told me at 18, and I'm 47 now.
Yeah.
I've been the same way ever since.
Yeah.
So to this day, I don't know why I'm still married.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But it's just who I am as an individual.
Yeah.
And I don't get close to you. It's just who I am. So now, how do I teach him not to be me?
You can't project.
I don't want to teach him to be me.
Yeah.
That's all. Go ahead. I don't want to teach him to be me.
Yeah, go ahead about your projection. Go ahead.
You can't project onto your children your experiences and then try to shield them from your pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that pain is yours.
Yes.
That pain is not MJ's. Now, will MJ get his heart broken? We all got our heart broken.
Absolutely.
We all did.
He will.
But it taught us something.
He will.
You can guide. You can assist. You can help to direct. You can offer advice, but you cannot shield from everything. Life is life. Everybody got to live it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have to allow our children to live, and sometimes they'll make the choices that we've taught them to make, that we hope for them to make. We hope that they have retained the information that we have instilled into them, and sometimes they gonna do stuff totally opposite.
Absolutely.
Because we did. Let's just be real. Facts. Totally opposite of what we saw, what we heard, and what we were taught.
That's true. That's true.
And you cannot, that's why it's important, and I know you just said you ain't gonna get no therapy. Okay, that's fine. That's your choice.
Another
but that's the reason
Y'all doing
why,
therapy for me.
All jokes aside, that is the reason. We grew up in that era too, right? Where it was a stigma. It was a stigma attached to therapy and counseling. And so that's why a lot of us ended up continuing the patterns.
Get over it.
Yeah.
And so that's why you see some of the questions that you ask on this very podcast, why this and why that, is because a lot of the stuff that we saw and that we grew up with and that, you know, our parents dealt with and their generation, the generation before, they didn't heal from that.
Yes.
They passed it on to us.
Absolutely.
And now we dealing with it.
Yep.
And we don't want to get no help.
Yeah.
And so what are we doing? We passing it on.
Yeah.
And so and then what we know is, as you build on top of that, on top of what you've learned, it gets harder to break with every cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you add on what the life that they're living and the experiences that they have. And it just gets more and more difficult to break those patterns and those cycles. That's why it is important for all of us to look in the mirror and deal with us. And figure out, hey, why do I react like this? Why I don't want to hear nobody? Why do I respond to stuff like this? We all got places in us that need to be healed, but we cannot just continue to perpetuate the cycles that we've experienced and the things that became before us. We gotta break some of this stuff.
Well,
because if we don't, our kids gonna do it. And so on and so on.
And that's why you asked me in the beginning, I made an intentional decision.
Intentional.
It was intentional that I needed to start breaking those habits, those behaviors.
For the betterment.
For the betterment of the next generation.
Yeah.
I could not allow the lack of affection to pass on, the hardcore outer shell and not being... Absolutely not. I need her because she's going to be a wonderful wife one day.
I'm worried about MJ. Jordan I don't worry about the most. Jordan just has a mouth, but MJ is very affectionate. Yeah. Every night he go to bed, he kisses Toy on the forehead. Aww. Good night, mommy.
That's
sweet.
He
gives me a fist bump. Me, just go to sleep. I got to get him in the morning.
And and if you look into your kids,
if
you look into your kids, they will teach you. He is teaching you.
It probably is.
He is teaching you. So I want you to practice giving your wife a kiss on the head.
Jay, get my outro out. So we get out of here, man. I don't know if I ever will be the person that probably I need to be. I don't know.
You want, and can I say, you probably won't until you really see it as an issue.
I think here's what
I don't think you see. I think you lean into, this is how my daddy was, and there's nothing wrong with that. That was his experience. But if we settle in and sit in a space that we refuse to even investigate and look at and see, is this the best way?
Right.
It worked for them, but is this the best way for me now? And until we recognize and admit and see that it might be a better way, I don't think that the steps needed to come out of that process won't even begin.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate y'all advice. Let me tell you that. It's a little therapy for me.
You gotta talk about a business.
But well, we close out. Tell people about your consulting services. Hold up, Jen, before you do the outro. Just tell them about your consulting business and how people can connect with you with your business. And I forgot, we got too deep into life and problems. So I owe you another one.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. So I have a consulting business where I specialize in helping small businesses, 3 or more employees, helping them to scale and grow and to offer employee benefits. You can find me at alchemybusinessconsulting.org or you can contact me at 615-809-1615.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want people to know, because like I said, you do consulting work, and I appreciate you impacting lives.
Yeah.
As a single mom, a fighter.
Yeah.
I just really hate using the word single mom. I'll just say just a phenomenal. Can I use phenomenal woman? Can I use one of them words?
Absolutely.
Phenomenal, because you was able to navigate your business, everything you're doing. You didn't let raising a child stop you from what you're doing.
Yes,
and I think that's the biggest thing why I wanted you on this show, because I see you still out here doing the things that you're doing. Advocate, speaking, consulting. Probably need some consulting with me. I probably would talk to you.
You would talk to me?
Yeah, I probably open up to you. So if you ever want to give me therapy, it's got to be somebody I'm comfortable talking to. And it's going to take a while, because I have a lot of Paul Manise Senior in me that I cannot shake. So thank you for coming on. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you for being a great mom. And I did meet your daughter when we met at Panera, and I met your dad. And you always have that smiling face, and I appreciate that, because I know sometimes we have to put that on with dealing with all the things that we're doing. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for dealing with me.
No, you great.
Dealing with me. So thank you so much.
No,
and,
thank you for having me. Of course.
Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast, your most trusted podcast that's centered about restoring fatherhood in America. If you like what you hear, please click the subscribe button on our YouTube page. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And also, if you like what you hear, please consider a donation, because this stuff isn't cheap to keep all this production on the air. So please consider a donation of any amount. 25 or more will help us. Follow us on all our social media platforms and help me continue to spread the word about fatherhood. God bless you, and I'll see you on another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast.